We're with Judith Overcash in Cleveland, Ohio, and we're just talking a little bit in preparation for Quire's appearance on the Luther Memorial Concert Series on March 18th in Erie, Pennsylvania. So Judith, thanks for taking time out of a very busy work and performance schedule to talk with us.
Very, very welcome.
So you've got a lot of performing in your background. What's something that you would say, darn it, I really wish I could sing that again?
There have been a couple of performances that have been premieres of this or a new edition of this, that, or the other thing. And I really only had the opportunity to sing them once. There was a performance several years ago with the Catacoustic Consort of Lully setting of Orfeo. Really a lovely, lovely, lovely piece of music. Only did that once, would love to do that again sometime. A couple of Handel pieces I've only done once or twice that I would really love to do again. There are so many pieces, and there's really so much music out there that, gosh, there are a lot of things that I would really love to do again. But some of the more obscure pieces that don't really get done all that often, that I would love people to have the opportunity to hear again.
So you mentioned Handel, and you mentioned Lully, so, and some premieres.
Yes.
So what makes them such a great experience?
I think it's a combination of things. The music itself, of course. And then there's a general level of excitement whenever you're doing something that people haven't heard before, that people haven't performed before. Excitement on the part of the performers that they're getting to share that for the first time. But then you also get a level of excitement back from the audience as well, because it's something that they haven't heard before, and they're excited to hear it. They're, in some cases, excited to be able to tell people that, oh yes, we heard that, we were at the premiere. And there are all sorts of levels of excitement from a lot of different people for a lot of different reasons, but it gives it a certain level of like electricity. You sort of get that feeling, and you don't get that with other pieces quite as much.
So there's going to be some electricity in Erie because some of the works on the Lobet and Herrn program are not at all familiar to most people in Erie. What should they be watching out for? You know, like Schutz and Scheidt and Walter. I mean, these are musicians well known to a very, very small subset of performers out there. And you're going to be part of this group bringing them to Erie. So what should they be on the lookout for?
Well, the pieces themselves are very, very interesting. They have such wonderful texture, and they have such wonderful harmonies, and they're in some cases very involved. There are a lot of layers and a lot of things to listen to. Some very interesting harmonies that are maybe not quite so typical, and yet they all have a certain familiarity about them because they're from a time and from an area that we've come to know and love from other more popular composers. And so they'll have a sense of friendliness to them. They'll have something that might seem a little familiar to them in terms of the overall color and the overall quality of the pieces, but they're definitely unique in the harmonies, in the way the voices move. They're just beautiful pieces, just really beautiful pieces. We're very lucky to be able to perform them because even though we're familiar with the composers, some of us, we don't get opportunities to sing that music very often. So people don't get to hear it very much. Well, we don't get to sing it very much. It makes it a lot of fun.
I can see that from just the excitement that you're sharing with us. And so one of the things that is sometimes difficult for people attending choral programs of this time period is how to listen or what to listen for. So do you have any suggestions or advice for people as to how to grab on to that rich texture and the polyphony that you've mentioned? And, you know, any suggestions might be a good thing.
Well, let's see. There is often a certain degree of imitation and repetition between the voices. There's a lot of interchange between the voices. So one of the things that I like to listen for personally is listening for snippets of melody, snippets of harmony that you hear repeated in other voices, places that you hear the same thing maybe stated in a slightly different way, the way the textures vary. So you'll hear a section that's very homophonic, then you'll hear a section that's very polyphonic, and hearing those differences and what they mean. If a piece of music is very homophonic, then obviously the composer really wants you to be aware of the text that's going on at that particular moment. If it's something that's more polyphonic, you can really latch onto the different pieces of melody and harmony, how they intertwine, how they work together, listen for maybe the sopranos were singing this here, and oh, now I hear that in the tenor part. Oh, now the altos are picking up on that a little bit. And it really ties it all together in a very, very nice way if you're listening to the details. But if you are not necessarily someone who can orally pick out a whole lot of little details, if you just sit back and listen to the entire piece in a sort of a wash of sound, it's incredibly beautiful just like that, without dissecting it at all.
So that's like when, with the opening of Lobet and Herrn, the Bach double motet, the text painting of the word praise, Lobet, and the run that starts with the sopranos, and then it comes in the altos, and then it follows another. Those are the type of things that people should go, oh, I get it.
Exactly, exactly. Hearing how he ties all of those parts together and the relationship that he creates between the parts is really amazing, and how he can build a melody that can then so easily, we say easily, so easily tie in with the same melody being stated in another voice, how they overlap, and how he takes that bit of word painting, if you will, and really just spreads that out through the entire piece. It's really wonderful when you go through and, well, what's wonderful is if you go through and sort of pick it apart just a little bit, you hear all of those things, and then you sit back and listen to it, listen to what he did with all of those little pieces. It's pretty amazing.
So that's part of the excitement with Quire, is the richness and the quality of the performance. So tell us a little bit, how did you become affiliated with Quire?
Well, I am one of the, relatively speaking, newer members of Quire. I've been singing with them for a little over a year, I think. Time sort of flies. I was not involved. I was just doing some other projects and other things, and a very good friend of mine went to one of the Quire concerts, and he called me afterwards and says, "Why are you not singing with this group?" And I said, I don't know. I actually just heard that they were doing some things. Who directs it? And he says, well, Ross directs it. And so I sent an email off to Ross and said, hey, when are you doing your next thing? Do you need somebody else to come and sing? And he said, oh my gosh, as it happens, one of our sopranos isn't going to be able to make the next concert. Would you like to come and sit in and see if it's something that you want to do? And sure. I got there and found that easily 3/4 of the members of Quire were people that I had been singing with off and on since I came to Cleveland in 1995. And because of that, there are people that I sang in choral settings with. So it was very, very easy to dovetail into that. And I think that it's actually something that's sort of important to know, that a lot of the members of this group have, in one context or another, sung in choral ensembles together before of a very high quality. And so there's a lot of experience singing together, a lot of experience blending the sounds together. And so we don't need to spend a lot of time working on blending our sound, because we've all done that together before. We can work on the overall musicality of what we're doing. We can pull out all of those little interesting bits and make them more enjoyable for the audience in the time that we have to rehearse.
So what's a typical rehearsal like with Ross? You can
Is Ross
all
gonna
the
see
secrets.
this?
Ross is listening now.
Oh no. Actually, we have a great time at rehearsals. We laugh a lot, but we get a whole lot done. They're very economical. We spend, he has a definite agenda that he wants to follow for the course of the rehearsal. We're really good about starting on time, and nobody comes in needing to learn notes. You know your notes before you get there, And so we can really jump right into interpreting the music. Ross is very good about listening to feedback from the members in terms of what we, perhaps this section we're wondering, can we do a little bit more of this? Should we do a little bit more of this? Do you want to hear more of this? Should we breathe here? Should we not breathe here? Which is not to say that we're dictating the rehearsal by any means, but it's very nice to work with a director who is open to listening to what the ensemble is feeling. And he is very good at, even without saying it, he's very good at picking up on what we want to do. Occasionally he'll say, well, I feel like in this part you guys want to do this. I'd like to do this. Let's see if we can meet somewhere in the middle and see if that works. We will get through a lot of music in a rehearsal, but our rehearsals are targeted for the concert that we're preparing for at that time. So they're very, like I said, very economical, and we don't do a lot of rehearsals for any individual concert because we come in knowing our notes. We come in already having sung through a lot of the music on our own, and it's really fitting all the pieces together and making it as beautiful a piece of music as we can.
So people like yourselves, it's so exciting because they're all involved and they've got this rich background already. You've sung with them, but what are the vocal adjustments you going into that ensemble, going, okay, I'm not doing oratorio, I'm not on stage doing my latest musical, or I'm not singing Sinatra. So what are the transitions you make to work in this ensemble?
Well, first let me say that all of the members of Quire are almost to a person soloists in their own right. Everyone is a soloist, so everyone is very accomplished in terms of their vocal abilities and what they bring to the table. With that said, everyone then has to make certain adjustments, some different adjustments than others, depending on what other music they sing as a soloist on the outside. One of the main things is you can't have a lot of heavy, full vibrato whenever you're singing in this kind of ensemble. It's much more, I always joke that it's firm yet ethereal. It's it's a very supported sound, very rich, very full sound that is a natural, relaxed sound, but the vibrato has been removed from it to a certain degree so that you can really lock into the tuning. When you have a lot of vibrato in your sound, the tuning just doesn't quite lock in the way that it does when you're singing with a straighter tone. Unfortunately, a lot of people equate straight tone to singing in a very tense way or a very thin way, and it's a fine line. It's very difficult to bring in your own color, bring in all the richness, and just have a natural sort of vibrato to your voice. If there's one at all, it's very natural, and it's not in any way distracting from the ensemble sound. I'd say that's the biggest adjustment, that and the fact that even though we're all soloists, as soon as we all start singing with Quire, no one's a soloist anymore. Everyone is a member of the ensemble and a very dedicated member of the ensemble, and so no one is trying to be heard as an individual. Everyone's trying to enhance the sound of the ensemble. It's a different mindset, and it's a different way of listening. You have to listen very differently.
So when you prepare for a concert like Lobet and Herrn, what are the types of warm-ups that you do personally, or maybe that the ensemble does, to get them reoriented and ready to perform?
Well, we don't do a lot of ensemble warm-ups beyond singing through pieces. Again, since it's a professional ensemble, it's assumed that you're going to show up and be warmed up and be ready to go, so that the time that we have to spend together is really focused on the music, focused on the program, rather than focused on trying to get our voices ready to go. Personally, I do a lot of warm-ups that try to maintain an increased flexibility in my sound. That I'm a first soprano in the group, even though I speak a little bit down here. And so I do a lot of exercises to try to really extend up to make sure that when I'm singing at the top part of my range, it doesn't sound like it's the top part of my range. You want everything to sound equally free on both ends, so that you don't stick out of the texture. So I do a lot of exercises that lend flexibility, a lot of exercises that are really focused on increasing range and maintaining a very natural quality all through that range. There's a lot of support. You need a lot of support to sing this kind of music. So a lot of breathing exercises, just personally bringing you from the larger vibrato-filled, very rich sound into another place. And it's not bringing it down to this place, it's taking a step to the left and taking your voice into a slightly different place. More support, more breath, a lot more air. You'd be surprised how much more air it takes to sing that way. And again, just flexibility and range.
Well, such a great comment about flexibility, support, all good basic choral concepts, but knowing how to apply them. And that's what we're so excited to look forward to having you and the rest of the ensemble. And again, thanks so much for your time today.
You're very welcome.